Was good. It's your boy. Um, Figured I'd give you a little drop before the live on Sunday. I know a lot of people talking about football. I'm still gonna do the live. Uh, it's catchy. People like it. I think I'm gonna do it in between the 1 and the 4 o'clock games, maybe the 6 and 8. And you can go back and you can look at it. With this episode, something that I haven't been wanting to touch on because this is something that's probably still ongoing behind my back. You know, a lot of people don't realize that I still got cases looking at me. I still, every day worry about them, even though I know I have nothing to do with them. So I'm going to give you, this was street, Cosa Nostra, it was kind of all mixed in together. There were street guys that were around Cosa Nostra guys, and guys from Cosa Nostra were getting the blame, and they were blaming on other people. And then it came out that I was involved. I'm getting a lot of votes. I thought people would love the Gucci paint job. You know me, if it's Italian, who don't love to be Italian, right? So this was something I never wanted to talk about, something I always make the joke when don't mention the feds, it's like Candyman, they'll appear. Well, this was a story that I really didn't want to tell, but a lot of people have been asking me about it. It's not even in my book because I had nothing to do with it, and it's just something that was a part of a bigger situation, and I touched on somebody talking, shit about it, and I touched on them, which I'll never touch on them again because they're so beneath me. It's their content. It's, guys go on and tell you they have no content by telling you the stories that they do. They just talk bad about other people and pop up with 2,500 subscribers, But I don't hate on that. I don't watch it. Like I said, if it comes into my DM by somebody that I know, my true supporters, I'll take a look at it for them. So I'm going to try to start filming from somewhere else. Sundays, they're usually the cemetery, the meat sauce, but I'm cutting back on the carbs, trying to get back down to fighting weight since I'm not allowed to hit the heavy weights lately. So I come home and I get sent up. 2006. I was out on bail for 11 months. I spent about almost 3 months at the Beacon at the time. I get out on bail finally. I fight the case. From 7.5 to 15, they realized there was a violent beef. So they were handing out flatbeds, right? So, make sure that's all. So I catch a 2 flat. I fight it for 11 months. I had a good lawyer. A lot of the lawyers I used were more like close acquaintances to friends. And I got a 2 flat. Now, was it my 2 flat to eat? No. Was I going to start making money? Like real money? Listen, any money is better than the money I make now. But you know what? I pay my taxes. I pay my support to the state and family court. So I'm okay in that sector. So I'm happy with that. Who knows what the future brings? If it brings, I don't want fame, so I don't want it to bring fame. But if it brings financial, so be it. If it don't, I'll still get up and go to work every day. Because that's just my Sicilian bloodline. It's in our DNA. We find it no matter what. So I come out. I get a visit from a wise guy, friend of mine. And he tells me, listen, a certain other friend of mine is a captain at the time now, full blown. No more acting. I get that message. I get the message on who's made, who's this, who's that. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, and I'm going to talk about this in my life. How does Hootie know more than Made, guys? How does Hootie... I'm going to tell you why. Because I was breaded, and I was told later on by my mentor to keep an eye on my friend who was his son. He was the golden goose. You gotta watch the golden goose. For them, not for me. Never earned a dollar with them. Never earned a dollar with Cosa Nostra. That's why you'll never hear me say that. But we all had a somewhat of a dysfunctional friendship. I looked at some of them like brothers. I looked at some of them like friends. However they looked at me, it's a different story, But I worried about how I looked at people. And as long as I made sure I paid attention to what was going on and I had my own back, I was good. I was alone on most of my life, probably all of my life. And I didn't need nobody to earn money with. I didn't need anybody to get direction from. But, and why I always say this to you, I'm happy for Alphonse that he's out of the life. He's with his family and he's doing good. Because that's the best thing for him. But he was, and I'm going to say a lot of buts today, it's not something that I need to go back because it's not something I do a lot. You know what I'm saying? I do say a lot, which is very unintelligent when you say it after everything. Maybe it's a nervous habit being on camera. I don't know. I'm usually not nervous for being on camera, but I see myself doing that a lot. But he had potential to be a boss. And how I say that is I watch guys who weren't made, broke bread with them, been around them, went to sit-downs for them, had their back on things, that became made guys. Flew to captain, flew to bosses, flew to active bosses, which a lot of people can't say that. I grew up in a neighborhood that's possible. But then my friend Al had a lot of faith in me to be around that life, to be a gentleman, not to be an embarrassment. I was that guy. So he included me on a lot of things I shouldn't have. And with his seal of approval, and before him, his father's seal of approval on any meeting that I went to, wise guys never thought twice about it. I'll get into certain names and certain people that are active today and gentlemen in life, and they gave me respect as they would want respect back. And, I wore that a little bit as a badge, not being straightened out, not even being on record as an associate. But I was privy to information. I was part of sit-downs. I was on the outskirts of sit-downs, and I knew what was said in and out. And was I breaded for Cosa Nostra? I was, somewhat. And then Al, being my age, would take me. Because as he was coming up as a rising star in the Gambino family, he was being loved, if it was fake or real, but shown love by so many other crews in that Borgata. He probably knew more guys and crews in that Borgata than any other wise guy at the time. And then when he became a captain, it was open season for him. And we would go. We would go to the Bronx. We would go to Staten Island. We'd go to this. We'd go to that. Wherever it was. And we'd meet guys. And I'd meet guys. And, I never got introduced as a friend. So if they would have a walk talk, I would always be behind either Al or his father or anybody that's in that position. Because it didn't matter if I was made or not made. Something goes down, I'm in there. I'm in the middle of that for them. And that was told from day one. That's the positions we hold. And it's happened a few times in situations of a discussion. You could call it a sit down, a walk talk. It didn't necessarily have to be in a club or a bar. Could have been in a nail salon, which it was one day. And the guy got out of line, and I was the first in line to take care of that. So he would take me, and I would see how certain other crews in the Borgata acted. And then I would see the let's talk over here. And I'd be a couple steps behind them, and they'd be talking, and the guy would say, not because I didn't get introduced to him as a friend, so he knows I'm not a friend. So, and I would always be like, he's good. And I was like an encyclopedia for Cosa Nostra. I was sucking it all in. And Al made that possible. There was qualities about Al. If we were alone, we were good. If we were with the crew, it was very weird because we were all together. But there was a lot of jealousy on who wanted to go with who, and who wanted to spend who, and whose room. And it was friend stuff, bullshit, nothing to do with Cosa Nostra. Because if it did, I didn't have any part of it, unless he involved me. And it was kind of like me also being schooled, which I was schooled in so many directions for Cosa Nostra. And I was just learning more, meeting captains, meeting underbringing guys coming home from 20 years that know the life better than anybody. And he did that for me. And I seen it. I seen it in him. I seen the respect that he was getting from people. And I says, that's the future of Cosa Nostra right there. And you know what? You know, he caught the bad end of the stick maybe of a few fights or, you know, people saying getting abused by guys. But I always thought that he was capable of standing up and, you know, protecting and honoring his position. I really did. I seen that because I knew he had it in him. And I hoped that he believed that we had his back. If he couldn't, I guess it went in a different direction when I wasn't around anymore. But I did inquire a lot. When I always tell these guys, when Senior was in prison and Uncle Pete took over for Junior, I wasn't around Junior as much as I was around Uncle Pete. Junior kind of lived by the rules a little bit. So when we used to hang out around the corner at his Uncle Richie's club, which was now his younger brother's club, Peter, who had nothing to do with the life, just liked hanging out, playing cards, enjoying a good fight. He was a, you know, hands guy. And I always talk about that. I give props where props was due, and that's where I started back at trying to, you know, be with Cosa Nostra. And we'd see Junior. He was around the corner. That was his club. Hello, goodbye, Hootie. That's it. Didn't know Junior on any other basis, right? But Uncle Pete takes over, and Uncle Pete is very fond of Ronnie One-Arms. That was his guy, Mad Hatter. Loved to have him around. And he started the Saturday tradition at the Bergen. Now, guys we used to go by the Bergen during, you know, even though, you know, Howard Beach and Ozone Park didn't get along, it was more Ozone Park than Howard Beach there. During the fireworks shows, going in and out of the club, that was just, you know, that was just like the Mecca. So it was like, wow, we're at the Bergen, you know. But then be invited on a Saturday, every Saturday, to play Continental, which was John Sr.'s favorite game. So we continued the tradition at the Bergen. And it was Uncle Pete running the game, and he would call for Ronnie to be there, and Ronnie would bring us. And we'd sit around, I'm not even on record as an associate, and break bread and play cards for hours every Saturday. Now, a lot of people can't say that. I hear guys talking about they're going to meet the upper echelon of their family just in case one day they get, like, if you haven't met the upper echelon of your crime family, and I'm not even in it, then you don't even belong in it. I know they say that's not the rules. Well, listen, I've eaten with many guys before they were bosses, while they were bosses, before they were made, and that's just the way it goes. That's the neighborhood you grow up in, and if you get in the right circle, which I did, he was the most powerful, feared captain at the time, and that's who I was around. Liked me, didn't like me, it didn't matter. That's what that was. So I learned a lot from that, and favors get done, and after 2-3 weeks of playing cards together and eating cold cards and, you know, fresh meats and cheeses, you develop a decent relationship where it's no longer a hello and goodbye. And I was a part of that. And I have Al to thank for that. And Ronnie, because Ronnie would not even hesitate. And we're going to get into another story about not accepting a drink from a wise guy. It's another thing. I'm going to get into a lot of things that you don't hear these guys talking about, the real stuff. They talk about the stuff that was written down in the textbook to be followed 100 years ago. We're going to get into other things, the stuff that when you go out and how you need to behave and what you need to expect, and the mistake that I made at a young age by not accepting because I didn't drink. So with that, I don't want to go too far off with the story, but I just want to let you know where we'll be going with this. And I do, at one point, Alphonse did hold me back. But at another point, he wanted me to learn Cosa Nostra as it was being structured differently. All the time it was changing. And we watched it change. And I watched how much power Alphonse had outside our crew because of the crew that we had that held it down. And they respected him for that. And he was an earner. And he didn't get involved in drugs. But contrary to what the government or anybody else wants to say, he wasn't a drug guy. I was a drug guy, but the drugs I did had nothing to do with Cosa Nostra. That was my own earn outside of Cosa Nostra. When we got together as a crew, hanging out, had nothing to do with anything organized. And I'll get into that, how I put myself back into that. So there's a lot of content I haven't even begun yet to give you. I know someone wrote me, these guys are already dying out, need to start all over to tell the same stories over. I'm not. I'm going to have something new for you every time I come on here. The lives are good. I'll get into a lot of things like that and how certain things don't affect us and how we're recession proof. And I don't prepare. I don't write a manuscript. This is right off my dome. If I mix boxes up or I mix the races of a Cuban or a Dominican, or that's just because I'm going off my dome, right off memory. So, but the stories are all there and the content's there and it's all real and it's all happened. I don't need to make pointers. I don't need to make scripts. And, a lot of people say, hey, Hootie, your interviews, you got to let guys answer. Listen, one, from what I can tell, from any street guy, I interview better than anybody. I peel a guy back. My interviews are fun. I got the right questions. They give the right answers. But yeah, I may get a little ahead of myself because I'm not the best yet. But I know I'm better than most that are out there with these interviews because I'm just like, ask the question. Ask, what are you doing? Like, you get a certain guy across from you, you got to know everything that you need to be asked this guy before you ask him. That's one thing. And it's not making notes. It's got to be up here. How Eminem writes his rhymes, right? Right? Jay-Z, off the dome. Eminem said he used to write them on a loose leaf paper, and then he started remembering them. But Jay-Z never wrote his rhymes, kept them up there, go into the booth, spin it, and that would be it. Same thing. So, we'll get into all of that stuff because, like I said, the content's here, people, and I got it. I see you guys subscribing to channels that tell you they don't have no content. They're just going to bring people on, talk about other people they don't like. And where are you getting street stories about guys, stand-up guys, real guys in the streets, real close on those? You're not, because they don't know them firsthand. They didn't see them firsthand. So, this wasn't one of my scarier moments. I said I was going to do an episode on the first time I was ever really scared. There's no fear or scare in Hootie. People say what they want. There isn't. I know what to expect. I know what I got coming, and I'm okay with it. So this is one of the stories. So I get out of drugs when I get out on work release. Now, I go up for a two-year skip bid, 2 flat. I was looking at 7 after 15. They dropped it to a 2 flat. The guy came forward, told the truth. The guys around me, one of them was spreading rumors while I was away. Well, he did 2 years. He should have did more. Stay away from him. He's no good. Right away. This is my friend, supposedly, right? It was his pinch. I took it. It had to do with him. But I took it. No problem. I thought that I was doing something good. This is my first badge. I'm going to wear this 2 years on my shoulder, keep my head held high, come home. This is what it's all about. Terrible mistake. I should have stood with the drugs. Whenever they would have got me, my millions would have been put away, but I didn't. This is where I wanted to be. And I was told by everybody in the neighborhood, get away from those guys, stay away from those guys. They're going to bring heat to you. The law enforcement's going to get to know your name. You're going to get arrested for association. I'm like, who gets arrested for association in this day and age? But it did. And we'll get into that. That's more content for you guys. So with this one particular thing, I did not want to talk about it ever again, right? But it was part Cosa Nostra, part street stuff, right? And somebody mentioned something about an ex-family member and somebody that was part of my bridal party, part of my children's lives as godfather, and something went down, okay? Very powerful drug dealer, involved with other crime families, very feared guy. I didn't know him personally. I met him when he came home from jail as a hello and goodbye. He was actually very good friends with my ex. And that was it. He winds up getting clipped. Now, this is a big thing. Who's taking credit for it, right? Now, I'm running my own pot organization. They got a huge pot organization at the time, but I'm helping them with it because they got guys they can't trust. So I'm doing runs for myself, and I'm doing runs for them, and so we're working together. But one of the guys that are working for him is a family member who I don't get along with, which a lot of people didn't know. So they go out and they commit this murder. Now, it wasn't the scariest. That wasn't something that scared me. That people were talking about wasn't me. It was the government and the FBI talking about a third shooter, and they put me on this. Now, it kind of had something to do with me changing my mind with my global plea, but it didn't, because I didn't have nothing to do with that part of the case. They tried to rope me in with the drugs, but they already had enough on me with my own drugs that had nothing to do with Cosa Nostra, but they roped it into it. Nothing you could, like those things you just can't beat. But now I'm starting to hear rumbles, right? There's a tape, and now, mind you, after this guy gets killed, there's a guy in our neighborhood, which you all know, and he had the reputation for killing people. So when it came to me, I'm over here thinking we're going to the mattresses because this is one of their friends who just got killed. Not knowing that it comes out later in allocutions, don't know true or not, but they allocated to it that it was two guys that knew him that did it. So I get sat down and told, listen, don't strap up, don't bulletproof up. That was a personal beef going back before, because he just had come home from jail. And they said there's a personal beef going back, and a guy named John is the one that did it. You know who he is, right? From when you were young? Yeah, I know who he is. Of course, he's, we know him as a murderer and a killer, and that's what he does. Okay, I wiped that off my shoulder for years. That's what it was. Didn't have anything to worry about because that got nothing to do with us or my family, which I was just starting. And it went on like that for a while. But then somebody said that my friend Al in Cosa Nostra was taking credit for this murder when I got out of prison. Then I was visited, and I was told, don't come around anymore. He thinks you're no good. So like, I just did 2 years. I didn't get a Christmas card, a package, a $50 bill in the commissary, came home, no envelope, no nothing. Ogats. I was told to stay away, don't come around anymore, get a job. Now, my whole thing was, I was on supervised release, 3 years, and I was going to work. I was back working in the unions, and I was going to build a bookmaking operation and a little shot, something that I was supposed to do, which I'll tell you about my first union job at 17, and that's what I was going to do. A little bookmaking, turn that bookmaking into Shylock, a little money out of the job, make a couple thousand extra a week on top of my paycheck, and that's how you live good, right? So I'm doing that now. I'm working in the union, putting money away, and I'm going to build a bookmaking operation because I knew it backwards and forwards. Better, Shylock business, not that you don't know, it's just a lot more legwork. So, no sheets, just guys between 35 and 50, overseas, Costa Rica, everything's running good, right? Some weeks I got bad weeks, treasure, the war chest gets empty. Got to fill it back up. When the feds picked me up in 2011, I had $20 to my name. It's a bad week. I was waiting to collect on a big sum. Guy got away with not paying me for that because I never came home from it, till now. So this murder was part of it because I had no idea on the 400 tapes that people want to say that I helped put this man away when me and this man had serious problems. And if he was going to go put a piece of work in with somebody, he wasn't going to involve me in it or after it. So I wasn't an accessory before, conspiracy during, or an accessory or conspiracy after, because I had no idea. They left me out of it. So the murder gets done, but I get brought in on 2011, and they're saying there's a third shooter. So out of everybody in the whole crew, who could have been the third shooter? It's got to be Hootie. But they already listened to the tapes. And for the first time ever, me and this person were talking in the box, and he told me, he says, I'm buried. So what are you talking about? He goes, I'm correcting who did the murder on tape. He says, how do you know? He goes, because I told the cooperator. He had to be wearing the tape. He set me up perfect. And I have the tapes. So when people say that I had something to do with it or I put him back in jail, and the minutes, which I've downloaded and sent to certain people that got big mouths, the minutes Sherry Capisi had right there, his allocution, everything. It had nothing to do with me because I didn't know about it. But when I did come home from jail on work release, the guy who told me, go get a job, so Al thinks you're a rat, go get a job. It's like, go get a job. Like, that just blew me off. I thought you guys just stood away from me because you're just scared of everything. Scared to visit people, scared to see people, and you still get picked up. I try to explain that to everybody. You stop going to weddings, you're going to stop going to funerals, you're going to stop. They're going to lock you up no matter what. You know, it's the Chin was mad about what John did because he was flashy, he was this, he was that, and he ended up in prison. Well, you know what? You walked around in a bathrobe. John walked around the way he wanted to walk around, and you ended up in the same place he did. Just took you a little bit longer. So, to me, it doesn't add up. Be who you're going to be. Represent the life the way you want to represent the life, and that should be none of anybody else's business. You're bringing just as much heat walking around in a bathrobe than he is walking around in Brioni suits and painted ties. So none of that made sense to me. So who do I get a visit from? I think it was like 3 months left on his parole, on his supervised release in the state, and we had the same PO. So he didn't tell me he didn't want me around anymore, but what he did want to come and tell me was if I was no good, he told me about the murder that went down. Now it blows my mind because I'm over here thinking it's a certain John from the neighborhood that did that because I don't know any of the players involved except the 2 players that were involved in the murder. So now this is something I didn't want to talk about. So Alphonse tells me the story. They blamed me for it because we had a beef back in the day. They thought I ordered it, that I sent it out. These guys are going to be made because of it. And in the end, he said, it was your scumbag family member and his friend. Blew my mind. Now, I don't know. Now, I know he's telling me that because it's in my mind already that he thinks I'm a rat over a skid bid. This is where his mentality used to go to that. And that's kind of what messed him up on his journey to be boss of the Gambino family one day. That mentality. Everybody was a rat. Everybody. I mean, it was just, maybe he heard it somewhere and then just everybody was a rat. No. Everybody in the life in that day and age, before 2010, was what? Legitimate guys in the life, not rats. You know, you can't just come out and say that. No, I don't mean legitimate guys as in, meaning legitimate guys as street guys. Like, they're not all rats. But he must have heard it somewhere and he ran with it. Everybody was a rat that did anything. But now you're here dry snitching because you think that I'm working. So, therefore, you're telling me the story you need to get out. When I'm not. So, I brushed the story off. Then somebody who I never talked to before comes to me and says the same thing that the person told me when I came home, my friend who's made, not to come around anymore, go get a job. Says, after all of this, you want me to go get a job? I gave up drug dealing. I gave up 2 years of my life to take this pinch. I met this guy because of you guys, and they telling me this guy's calls me a rat, don't come around anymore, the life is over. 2008 on work release? Nah, it's not how this is going to work. I'm going to cut the drugs out. I'm going to open a bookmaking operation, turn that into a Shylock business, and keep the union job and be out in 20, right? So now I get the story from him. He's looking to take credit for this. When so-and-so did it, now that blew my mind because he don't realize that so-and-so already told me that John did it. Now, I got both sides. So if I even wanted to tell, I'd have to just tell both sides of the story. And when you tell a U.S. attorney or the FBI both sides of the story, you can't make sense of it, right? So the pinch comes down. And they're looking for it. Now, it's on the tape. He maps out everything that happened to discourage it from being Al making the order or Al having anything to do with it. He doesn't mention my name whatsoever. But To this day, in certain districts, they still look at me as the third shooter. So I had that hanging over my head, which I wasn't worried because you could bring in anybody to the grand jury and they'll tell you, yeah, all right, Hootie may be that guy, Hootie may be around those guys, Hootie may be the guy that they would call to go with them, but Hootie didn't get along with them like that. They wouldn't trust that information in Hootie. Now, me coming home from a 2-year bid and them coming to me talking about, look at the piece of shit friends you got, 2-year bid, they want to call you a rat, they want to have you chased, which they don't know he comes to visit me, cuts them all up, and tells me something which gave himself away that I know he said it now, that I was a rat on a 2-year bid. No big deal. Whatever. So now, one guy goes in, we listen to the tapes. Now, if I had anything to do with it, down to driving, down to being one of the shooters, down to anything, he mapped it out. My name would be brought into it. It's right there in the tapes. I carry the tapes to this day. Because I lost friends, I lost family members that have blood that won't even talk to me anymore, all because of this one thing. And he literally told Gene Barillo, Hootie had nothing to do with this. He had no idea until it was brought up. But the problem was, it was brought up by him, and it was brought up by Alphonse. So even if I had to go in and tell this story, I can only tell it as how both of them got me, and both of them told me the story. And the third guy who you're looking for, who actually pleaded out to it, told me it was a totally different person that did it, because he was a very low-key guy and just, pushed it off on someone else, and you never hear him talk about it. But the one guy that they say that I heard, my family member, and put him in jail, is on tape talking about the murder, word for word, action for action. You can't beat that. Now I'm in the box with him. And now remember, we weren't friends. We were really enemies almost. Yeah, we were enemies. If we actually, there was a few nights where it almost popped off, and it would have been bad. Because he got a Mad Hatter backing him, without me knowing, I might have caught one because of the beefs. Because he wasn't gonna fight. He wasn't gonna want to have anything to do with me. He was walking past that. So they bring the tapes out. I listen to the tapes. Everybody listens to the tapes. I'm not even on it. But by the government, by the FBI, to this day, I was questioned. Not questioned anymore, but still looked at. Because most of the guys are retired, moved on to higher positions that I was on the case with. But there's a certain U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney, that still looks at me for that as the third guy and the third shooter on that case. So this was a story, it's not even in my book, that ruffled a lot of feathers. All right, someone said, I got a guy 25 years, I got a guy 50 years. No, that was a guy who got 19 years. And I'm not going to put the rest of his business out there because you can go right into the minutes. Jerry Capisi has the minutes word for word, and federal court, you pay the money, got the minutes. He allocated, my name wasn't in it. They still didn't want to believe it. From the tape saying it to him allocating to it, I had nothing to do with it. And they still looked at me for it. So that was one murder that they wanted to pin on me. Because if it's 1 or 3, it doesn't matter who did it, you all get charged for the same thing. Because the guy talking about it, who didn't do the murder, who didn't pull the trigger, who wasn't one of the trigger men, got 23 years, 19 plus 4. He gets 23 years. And the guy that allocated to pulling the trigger only got 19 years. Now, not only, he spent half of his adult life in prison. And this was supposedly a beef that went back, didn't have anything to do with drugs, didn't have anything to do with anything. Just an old beef that had to be settled because they knew that this guy was a serious guy and he probably would get the jump on them one day. Now, I didn't know any of this until I got into federal prison. So then someone goes online and says, I put my ex-brother-in-law in jail for 25 years. None of the above happened. He got 19 years, and the judge popped on 4 more years, called him a wannabe. It's in the credits. It's in the minutes. It says it right there. It had nothing to do with me putting a drug charge on him. I had nothing on him. I didn't earn with him. He was one of the worst earners ever. besides his bookmaking operation, he couldn't earn in the street for nothing. It's just a bad operation, so we would never do business. And because at one time I was married to his sister, it caused a lot of friction because I was out there doing me, and it caused a lot of issues. But over that, I lost my whole family. And I was told for years, that's not the reason, but that's a reason that keeps coming up. And that's the reason I keep looking every day for them to kick down the door and eventually tell me that I was part of that. Because they've been talking about it, and it went from one district where all the guys retired that knew I had nothing to do with it, but broke my balls to no end. Oh, come on, you were there, or you were in a car, or things like that. To now another district actually looking at me as being the third shooter there. So this is the way things happen. Now, I'm in federal prison, lockup, and I'm hearing this, and it's like, all right, I'm looking at the 20, I go up against the 20. If I didn't tell then, these guys should have learned something for that. 20-year mandatory minimum. Then I'm looking at the 10. Now I'm going to fight the 10 down. But now I got a guy who I think is my best friend. It's coming back to me. He didn't want me around, but he wanted to get in my ear to tell me that these guys did it just in case I was cooperating. I could tell them that. On top of them coming to me telling me that he thinks he did it, but he didn't because we did, and he's trying to take credit for it. So now, even if I get asked or sat down during Queen for a day, I got to tell them the truth. And that's the truth right there. And that's just the confusion. But you're on tape mapping out what happened. And it's a hard pill for the government to swallow, not the FBI. But the FBI also swallowed it a little bit wrong. So that was one of the murders that they tried to pin on me that I was the third shooter on. When it all came out, it was my ex-brother-in-law, it was Jerry, and it was a childhood friend named Marty, who all got blamed on Johnny A-Light. Don't like to mention his name because I don't speak for him, but that was the issue. Which, the one thing I can tell you was, after finding everything out, John actually warned him. He ran into Marty and told him, your friends are going to set you up. Probably heard something through the grapevine. They've been waiting for him to come home. He was away 7 years. He was a Mad Hatter. Marty was a Mad Hatter with the Genovese family. Had a ton of things going on. Had a lot of crazy guys around him and shooters, and they knew that they were going to have a problem with him, even though they were childhood friends. But they had to eliminate him. I don't know why. I wasn't involved in the discussion. But the thing I could tell you is the two people that allocated to it were the two people that knew about it, were involved in it, and they were the only two. Another person, they said, had something to do with it, and they said that I said that he was supposed to be there. I never did. In the tape conversation, it was said that he was supposed to be there, and they ran with that, which it wasn't that he was supposed to be there that night. He was the guy that they wanted to pick and use way back when to do it, but he walked away from that lifestyle into another lifestyle and had nothing to do with it. And that's why he was never charged or brought up on it, but it made me look bad because he was a friend of mine. And it looked like I was a person that said he should go. No. My understanding, it was them two at the end, after hearing all the stories, John, Al, this one, that one. And this is how fast you could be wrapped up into a murder in the feds. And this is one of the things that somebody went and said that I testified and got my brother-in-law 25 years. He got 23 years, and he allocated to why he got the 23 years, and it had nothing to do with me. There was no trial. He knew he was guilty because the only conversation me and him had, one time we shared a wall in the box. And he whispered through the thing. He said, I mentioned a few things on tape. Well, I think they're on tape. There's 400 hours, and I was speaking to the person that was cooperating a lot because I considered him a friend, and I might have slipped up and talked about something I shouldn't have. I had no idea what he was talking about at the time until the tapes came out. We didn't have any discovery. We finally getting it during pre-trial. So that was a murder they tried to put on me. He's the guy. He's capable. He would have been the guy that would have been there with him. Bottom line. That's not my thing. It was not my beef. There's no reason for me to ever get involved in that. Was the guy who died a bad man, a serious guy, and a Mad Hatter? 100%. But it wasn't my beef. It wasn't my money. It wasn't anything about drug. It wasn't any of that. It was something that went back with them and their crew way back. And one of the guys I got along with, that was the hitter, and the other guy, who was my friend, I didn't. We didn't speak for years. So even if the other guy wanted me on the piece of work, he would have never went for it, because he would have said, no, I got beef with him. I don't need to be married to him for the rest of my life with this murder if we're never going to get along because of family issues. We were brother-in-laws. But he allocated to it because he did say it on tape. I don't know what he exactly said on tape, but he actually warned me before it happened. And right then and there, you get people to come online and tell fake stories. And that went through Cosa Nostra. That went through the streets. This was a serious hit. This guy was left along the Bell Parkway as a like a reminder to people. This is what tough guys and killers get when they get out of line, or they want to try to take a business over, or try to take something from somebody. Anybody can get it at any day of the week. The old-fashioned saying, if anything in this world has been proven, is anybody can be killed at any time. This guy was a Mad Hatter. He was, probably bullying his way into their business. I don't know all the logistics of that, but I was personally put as a third shooter, and there's an organization out there that still looks at me, where it's already out. It was on tape. It was spoken about. It went. 2 guys allocated to it. 1 guy pleaded to hit. The other guy pleaded being part of it. So I don't like to talk about it much, because one of the guys that were involved in it probably would have trusted me enough, but because of the other one, he didn't. This is just what I'm thinking. So I can never be involved, because he would never be married to me. When you commit something like that, and I tell you this all the time, you get married to a guy. He would never want to be married to me in that. His sister was my ex. This wasn't going to happen. But I lost my family. I lost his family, who I was close to. I lost friends. I lost a lot of things over this, because they didn't know which way this swung. Because nobody likes to go and pick up a piece of paper, or go to a courthouse, or hire a lawyer and read the guy's allocution, or read the judge's minutes on why he got that much time. That's all you have to do. But I did send this, paperwork to somebody, the minutes, when they did mention that. And that's why I'm talking about this story today. Being blamed for being part of a piece of work that I wasn't at. Now, very easily I could have been at it. But very easily, me and that person had a beef and didn't want to be married to me to it. So I'm pretty sure that's why the other man didn't ask me to be there. There was only a certain amount of people you were going to trust to do something like that. And at that time and in that circle, it would only have been me, which was the logical thought for the U.S. Attorney and the FBI. Because they drilled me about it for a long time. And like I said, to this day, there's a certain district that still looks upon that, because they don't move on. It's not like the state. I always tell you that. They'll hammer at the same nail at the same guys. And it's totally wrong. And that's something I'll fight to the end. Now, I'm not, like I said, yes, it's a logical thought that I was there and I was one of the hitters, 100%. Because I'm the only logical person at the time, capable, willing, in their eyes, to do this. But like I said, my brother-in-law wouldn't have been married. My ex-brother-in-law would have been married to me on this case. So, whatever they did, they did. They allocated, they got their time, and the judge said it in the minutes why they got that time. And had nothing to do with me or anything I've ever said. And that's clearing it up. I always tell you guys I'd give you a great story on what happened and how it happened, and that was one of the murders that I was being looked at for as a hitter. It was cleared up, but like I said, there's still a certain district that looks at me to this day. And it's scary when you're not guilty of something like that, but they know that you're capable of. So they're not going to not think that, and that only adds to them. Keep it on the back burner, and if anything else comes up or thrown our way, we'll go pick them up. And that's not a good thing. My life has changed. I walked away from that. And God willing, something that day, whenever it was being discussed for that to go down, because like I told you, real G's move in silence and violence, and nobody knew how that was going to be moved, not even me. I wasn't involved in it. Nor was somebody else that they wanted to put there and say, I put that person there. I had nothing to do with it, so I couldn't put that person anywhere. And this was the murder of Marty, left on the Bell Parkway by two certain guys who pleaded out to it. The hitter got less years than the guy who talked about it on tape. And this is all public knowledge. And that was one of the things that I was fighting that was turning me to change my life. How easy I could have been looking at the needle for something I had nothing to do with. Only because the U.S. Attorney and the feds had me as a capable man being part of something. Just like that. And this is what the streets bring. And you want to talk about teachable moments? Right there. Right there. Your reputation, your friendships that you might not have, but they don't know that from the outside looking in. The inner beefs that we were having. How I can never be married to that. Just like that. Ham sandwich and you're indicted. And it costs you $1 million to fight that at trial. Because that's where I'd have to take you with a pro bono lawyer. And I'm giving them information right now that that's what I'd be using if they kick my door in and try to put something like, but you got it. I had nothing to do with it. And this is a story, like I said, I did not want to tell, but I feel with the things that are being said out there, you just need to know this. And you just want to know who he was and the type of guy I was. Well, that's the type of guy the government knew I was, thought I was, who I was. And out of all the participants, I was the guy that they thought was most capable to be in that and involved in that hit. So it's not a good thing. It really isn't. And to have them still looking at you is even more scary when you went in and told the truth about what you've done. And it doesn't involve that. Thanks for staying tuned. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have another one that we're going to put out after my live Sunday. And it's going to explain a lot more on how all the backs got turned on me and blame got put on me for another murder. A murder that I would be so far away from because it was so fucking stupid that I shouldn't even have been spoken about in it. But I was. And it ruined my reputation in my own neighborhood. That one. The other one, the guy was a garbage pail, Mad Hatter. What did it matter? Right? But Hootie's name was still thrown in that pot. And then we'll also get to which I was just talking to somebody about it, when Dan Brown was the Queens, he was the DA in Queens at the time. And I was 22 or 23, and they already had me down as this, serious Cosa Nostra guy, and it wasn't what they thought it was. So, stay up, Jim Don, and stay tuned for the next video.